myself. Okay.
Let me get out of this. Let me go back in. Oh, you're gone. Where'd you go? TREN. Okay, we lost our guest. She'll be back in a second. Just want to make sure we're online. I don't know what happened to her. Okay, here we go. How's it going, everybody? Hey, Delia, Kathy Wildowski, Monica, Devi Bhakti, and my brother from Macedonia. You need to come get back on here with me. Do a little freestyling. All right, we're going to. I'm not sure what happened to our. Guest, so I'm going to put on a little bit longer intro, I think. Hey, Heather Nilsson, Robert Scribner. Actually, I'll just play the normal one. Hey, Trish. Okay, be right back. How's it going, everybody? I'm not sure what happened to our... Oh, there she is. Just in time. What's happening? You disappeared like Bewitched. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, sometimes I just go into the womb space.
I got you. You were shrouded. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in Ventura, California,
yes.
And we just met.
Yes.
I'm half out of it. I only slept 2.5 hours last night.
Oh, good.
And but this is typical soulogy style. How we get acquainted. We just get acquainted in front of all of our brothers and sisters. So I invite you to. This is a conversation. Looks like YouTube, but there it goes. You can ask questions too. I mean, this is not really a Q&A, typical talk show interview style. So welcome to SOULSPEAKS 5D. Welcome to Soulogy. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us. I'm anxious to see what your story is and all that good stuff. I love that dove behind you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, I feel like I want to share about how I've gotten into this embodiment process. That I went through some challenging times, some hardships, and the divorce, and some just challenging moments, my dark night of my soul. And I went into 5D in just wanting to raise consciousness in myself and in the world and just focus on that. But through that process, it was also kind of checking out of the body. And so I had to realize that was happening, and but I didn't really realize it until after I left Mount Shasta. So I moved up. I was living in Northern California, and I moved up.
Hang on a second. I want to get a clear indication. So how long ago was this? I'm just curious.
Oh, okay. We want the timeline.
Well, just like, was it 5 years ago, 2 years ago?
That was 2016.
Okay, so this was 4 years ago. You went through a trauma or succession of traumas like most of us here.
Yeah.
And then you had a reawakening experience.
Yes.
And you mentioned correlate Shasta with us, and you mentioned you left your body. What did you mean?
What I mean is I connected. It was with the divine feminine. I felt very much connected with the divine feminine energy, and I felt like I was coming into this pinnacle, moving to Mount Shasta, as I had read the Sophia code and really tuned into the divine feminine energies. And through that, connecting with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and it was this embodiment process of the divinity, embodiment of my oversoul aspect. It was, I say embodiment like to hear.
Was it? But let me ask you this, because a lot of people are using the term embodiment, and of course our second hashtag here is the human is the hero, because it's not all the stuff we connect to doesn't really maximize its potential unless we embody it. Unless we put it into. But were you talking about up here? Were you talking about because you came out of the traumas? You're connecting to these various aspects of the Mother Goddess, and thank you, Mother Goddess, because none of us would be here if it wasn't for you. And so now you're at Shasta, and were you anchoring it, embodying it? Were you up here in the higher chakras? Did that include the lower chakras? Where were you at with this?
It did include the lower chakras as well. It felt like a very much of a staying in one place. It was like I would be at home and anchor, and then I would go to the waterfalls and connect with the beautiful waterfalls in Mount Shasta and the waterways. And so that was part of the shift. And then I realized that I was feeling this connection to a spiritual level, but then the soulfulness level, like I had not quite dealt with. So I moved to Sonoma County and started this process of embodiment, was connecting with, because I've been a teacher, so I connected with Waldorf and Waldorf training. And so through that, I got to do the beautiful dancing that's part of Waldorf, the eurythmy, and the arts and crafts, and learning a lot about this embodiment process. So I'm grateful for that. Just staying in the moment here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And so that was a very soulful experience, because what I came in touch with was so many beautiful, soulful people. And so, I mean, I felt being on this show is like there's a very soulfulness to this show. It's got this roundedness that is really powerful when it's fully experienced. And I don't think I fully experienced my soulfulness. And I went through a lot of grief. I lost a couple of family members over time. And so I was going through this grieving process, and I did not want to be with my grief. I wanted to just be in 5D and be in the spheres, music of the spheres. Sound healing was really powerful for my journey to, that was an embodiment process, was doing the sound healing and the toning, the vocal toning. That's where I can share and create new earth frequencies. But I also realized that I hadn't quite dealt with the lower chakras entirely. So it was a process of going with the lower chakras to come home.
That's what I was referring to earlier. Because it's a common trait. And that is that the communications begin, or the connections, the divine episodes commence. And so we're up here. And then it starts to come in here, particularly if you're a woman, I think. Women's intuition, the crown, the third eye, so the upper chakras. But I think it seems to be a pretty much across the board when it comes to really anchoring in and aligning and embodying. It's the lower chakras that all of us, men or women, have had the challenge, but it looks like we're making some headway now. In your story, you're back now 2-3 years ago, but How has that progressed to this point? Have you been able to align, in your opinion, your lower chakras with your upper chakras in this embodiment of these divine essences?
I feel I have by doing yoga.
Mm.
Like I've been on this yoga journey recently, and so I've been able to get more and more into my body through the asana practice. Yoga itself is about union. And so in the last 4 years, I went through this divine union process, was thinking, that was my divine union partner. But then in the process, I brought the divine union within myself. And so having this union of divine masculine and feminine. And so as I've been on this yoga journey for the past couple of months, I mean, it's been longer for sure, but the yoga journey of really tuning into the yoga philosophy of the union within has just been a really powerful journey, like reading the Bhagavad Gita. And it's been super exciting and powerful. As far as the lower chakras, I've also tuned into the lower chakras through the womb wisdom. Like I was on a priestess path. I learned a lot from the Sophia energies through other divine feminine teachers. And so that was really supportive on my path. And I do want to tie this together to where I am now as a teacher and education, because it's like I've had these different streams. I've had the 5D stream, the New Earth stream. I even, when I was in 2016, came across, like right as my marriage was ending, I came across a group of grid workers, and we started on a grid working journey. And it was like the telepathy that I had learned from these other, from relationships, it was that I learned that I could have this with a group. I didn't really know that I could have that kind of connection with a group, and then learning how to activate the Merkaba and all of that. And it was a very powerful experience, such a learning experience to work with a group of grid workers, because, I learned what to do and what not to do, because it's with great power comes great responsibility. Right. And now for the grid work that I do, I focus on anchoring love. Yeah. Just focus on anchoring love, pure love, anchoring it. And so, and it's been mostly on a physical level. Like I felt, I say that I haven't done all this lower chakra unification, but whenever I would go somewhere, I would make sure that I was physically present, like with all my documents and paperwork, that I was physically present in the area that I was in. So like when I moved to Mount Shasta, I made sure everything lined up with Mount Shasta, like on a soul level, a spiritual level, and a physical level too. And when I moved to Sonoma County, I did the same thing. And just recently, I finished that process of really being present where I am now. And so there's been this circling where I am and anchoring that loving energy where at this exact grid point, as we all are, we're all doing that.
Yeah. You've been guided to go there. Like you were guided. Yes. Okay. How long were you in Shasta?
I was in Shasta for I was anchoring energy there for about 7 months, but I was really there for 3 or 4 months. Yeah, right. And then it was I was called to go to France and be in France after my grandfather passed away, to be with my French sister in France and connect with the Magdalene energies in the south of France and go to Rennes-le-Château. And so that was a beautiful experience. And then my friend Zoe, who is also a grid worker. And so she was like, you're here in France. You might as well come to Glastonbury too.
Oh, Zoe was there? What's Zoe's last name?
Davenport.
Davenport. I wanted to say Campbell. Yeah. I'm like, what am I talking about? No, that's not right. So Zoe was there too. Yeah, Zoe's cool.
Yeah.
Zoe's powerful. So you were in France, so you touched on that. You were in Shasta, you touched on that. You obviously got some kind of connection to the goddess energy, and of course, being in France, the Magdalene Rose, and all that. What about the galactics? Have you had any galactic interactions? Anything that stands out?
Well, with the Syrians, I would say that this is definitely where I felt the most connection, and it's really, I've learned that my ancestors have helped me see that path, where there was, like, if you think of Sirius B, it's where the I would say fish people, or that's what we've been told, is that from the Dogon tribe. It's the amphibians.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe our last guest was talking something about, somebody was today, I can't remember who it was, dolphin fairy hybrids. And also dolphins with arms. So, maybe there's a relation there. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be. And I've definitely connected with the dolphins, like a couple of times going to the ocean, just toning, and then the dolphins will show up. And so there's that. But my father was a surf filmmaker, and so he had this connection to the water energy. And he went on this beautiful trip with my mother to Africa, and they went into the village where the Dogon tribe was.
Is that right? Wow.
Before I was born.
You can't make this shift up. You were probably there with them. You were probably guiding them there.
So yeah, in the other room, I've got this chair from the Dogons, and
wow.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful.
Is it the Dogon tribe still functioning? I mean, still thriving? I'm just curious.
They're still functioning. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I thought they were. I just had, was just thinking about it with everything else that's going on. So, so now you're in Sonoma, and you've taken this whole circuit around, and you're in Sonoma. You were guided there. What guided you there, and what are you focusing on now? What do you feel like you're missing?
Well, I was guided there because I felt this connection to looking at a different way of teaching. Now I can go into the bit about teaching, where I did a very traditional path where I went to graduate school, got my master's in education, and then I wanted an adventure, so I moved up to Alaska. And there were some really galactic experiences that I had up in Alaska, and elemental experiences up there.
Really? What kind of elemental experiences? I love elementals.
Well, I'm coming up on my birthday in September 17th, but so those are the chimes in the background. They'll go off at times. So I was looking at the window, and it was dark, and there were like these glittering up on the window, just like shining around the window. And when I woke up in the morning, there was an infinity symbol of fairy circles.
Far out. Now that's what we're talking about right there.
Yeah.
So that was on the window of your igloo. I'm not just messing with you. But that was on,
igloo, I know.
That was on the windowsill. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the window, yeah, it was like the glittering of the fairies, and then I looked outside in the morning on my birthday morning, and then I saw the fairy circle.
I think that was your sisters, or your soul family, or something. I was curious as to whether you saw some of the elders up there, what they call Sasquatch, up in Alaska. Did you feel any of that energy? Have you felt any of that energy in California? Because I know some people have. Maybe Northern California, I guess, or more north than you are.
Yeah, I haven't felt it as much as other people have. I mean, I definitely could feel something like that when I lived in Oregon, because I moved from Oregon.
You've been all over.
Yeah, I've been like up and down the coast of California, and well, up and down the West Coast.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of a grid pattern. Yeah, and so I went to do my master's in education, and then taught up in Alaska, and I taught in middle school. And I learned Reiki. I did my Reiki attunements while I was up in Alaska. And then I went up to, I was married at the time, went to Northern California, and I took a job because in California I could work with elementary age students, whereas in Alaska I had done a secondary program. Mm-hmm. And what I learned when the schools is that there's so much pressure on these kids to know so much at such a young age. Mm. And so I really am rooting for families that are homeschool parents, or parents that have not been homeschool parents, but families that have been, they've been a part of the school system, but they're like, we don't want to be a part of that anymore. I want to support those families and help them, consult with them, help them have the supports and skills that they can, just getting the basics, the reading, writing, and arithmetic, not all the other stuff.
I think the quarantine is facilitating, like a new level of homeschooling.
It is.
That probably won't, when you get right down to it, follow the curriculum of the institutional educational system. But it's funny how there's so many people. Well, it's notable that there's so much chaos and so many people freaking out. When if you look at the energetics of the quarantine, it's actually an incredible gift for all of us, to include pulling those kids out of that system and taking the bite out of the imprint that system leaves on everybody, including financial and all the other stuff that goes with it. So are you formulating something to support those parents and those kids, or are you working in the system now?
I've been working on the edge and the edge and the edge of the system. I've worked in like so many, I've been in cities and worked in the schools. They are right in the middle of the public school system. And then I wanted to connect, I think it was that whole thing where there was that school choice thing where it was like public and private. And that's when I discovered the Waldorf, and I was like, you know what, there's got to be another way. And with that, it was like the kindergartners can just be kindergartners. They can just play and create and use their imagination, develop their intuition, be supported in that. And it's not that everything.
Yeah, they play with the fairies and the other elementals and
totally
discover their star family. I mean, I think it's kind of like a big fire hose that's been turned on. It can't be stopped now. And these kids are bringing something to the table that none of us have, which is not saying anything bad about us. It's just that they've come in at a very high frequency, and you can't argue with the numbers. You talk about an alien invasion. These kids are the alien invasion, not the Project Bluebeam one, but the real one, right?
Yeah,
you would know. You work with these kids.
Yeah, and I've seen the star seed ways, the indigo, the rainbow child, all of that. I've seen that in the kids, and it's like I've worked as a special ed teacher, so it's like I don't want to give the labels, but I see it as archetypes. Yeah. That there's these archetypes of the indigo. They don't want to deal with corruption or done with it, and they want to shift out of it and want to support the new earth, whereas there's and we can shift into that crystalline energy from there, and then that rainbow where we can be so strong. I mean, it's hard to believe this, but so strong that GMOs, all that stuff doesn't even like won't even phase us if
Yeah.
we've got enough light embodied within
Well, I
us.
think there's plenty of people around the globe, including me, who are, and I'm not normally going to pat myself on the back, but I know we've overcome them, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I saw this the other day, and I've noticed it over like the last 6 months. What month is this? I forget. But like around the time that the supposed COVID-19 hit, I don't see the chemtrails like we used to. And when I do see them, there's very few.
Yes.
But I don't see them checkerboard in the skies. And I've been in Florida and a few other states, and I'm in Arkansas now. But since about February, you just don't see them like you used to. So, that's an interesting side note, right?
Yeah. And I used to work a lot with the skies, and so I can tell when there's a heavenly sky and when there's not, and we've
Yeah,
had a lot more heavenly skies, and so that's just
yeah,
a cool thing. Like all the light workers that are working together.
yeah. Right on,
Okay, so
right
that's
on.
good.
Yeah, because I mean, I wrote a post last night, or I think it was last night, and I was just talking about how this change is a change in consciousness. And, it's not about protesting and marching and boycotting. I'm not saying they don't have their place. I'm just saying that the change in consciousness supersedes everything. So if you just look at, what you mentioned a while ago, because a lot of people have talked about how they work with chemtrails and they make them dissipate.
Hmm.
Just the conscious energy of transformation projected towards something like that maybe didn't have the right intentions or intentions that we resonate with, that supersedes everything. Just the decisions of sovereignty in our head really change everything. I think I've got to believe that that's had a huge impact on pharmaceuticals, even fluoride, and other matrix programming methods. Uh, it's almost like it's less impactful to say, "Hey, did you know this is happening?" versus, "Hey, I'm not into that. I'm going to transform that into love and move on down to the next."
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful our transmuting power, but also the anchoring love, just anchoring love on the planet is so nurturing and supportive. I feel like in these conversations, we are transmuting through the educational system, um,
Yeah,
on a physical level now.
absolutely,
It's so beautiful to
absolutely.
see it happening on a physical level. And as far as what I'm offering, I'm coming together with a couple of other teachers, and we are creating, through toning, through this co-creation process of what is going to come about. And curriculum is not going to look the same way that it's looked before. A lot of it will be intuitive in the moment with these kids, because curriculum has been so much about the teachers and what the teachers want to bring to the kids. It's now we need to listen to the children and what they want to bring to us. So for me, it's talking to the kids and finding out what their interests are and bringing that into the curriculum that I'm teaching.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I've got some educators in my family, and just going back years and years, thinking about it. Really, and then of course 6 kids. I've had some exposure to the educational system, but I don't even know if it was. I don't even know if the teachers had much of a hand in it. Almost like uh, freedom, in our eyes as, let's just say, as an American. I don't consider myself an American. I'm a Earth citizen. But what I'm trying to say is that we think we're having our freedom, yet we really don't have some certain freedoms. It's under a guise, and I think that's the way it was with the educational system. At least what I observed, they thought they had some input, but they were really told what to do. I think you're right. That's the first thing I thought when you said that these kids are going to come in the door and they're going to say, "This is what we're doing," period. And I think we're seeing a lot of evidence of that because there's such a widening level of communication from these children, even less than 1 year old. that are directing their parents' lives, and we've had some contact with them on this show. So this is a total game changer. To me, the children are like a real sign that we're way beyond the tipping point now, because like they couldn't have even come in here had we not gotten us to a certain level.
Yeah. Like these kids, they haven't really learned how to self-regulate because they have had all this structure put into their days. Like
Yeah.
so many, every minute was structured and bell schedules. It was like I went to was working at a Waldorf school, and it was just like we did the bells for one day and everybody's like, I can't handle it.
All right.
And so like as these structures are dismantling, these kids are learning how to play and learning how to get along again, and get along with their brothers and sisters too, because they've been their families.
Yeah, and of course they were put onto a kind of like a schedule, like you said, just like their parents, just like we were. For them, I mean, it wasn't as. But by the time we got out at 18 or 22, or if you went to graduate school like you, I mean, there was a routine, there was a certain mentality of, join the other hamsters on the wheel and start spinning. I mean, and I think there's been a lot of that's been extracted since, let's say, 2012. And I think the other thing that's helped us that goes along with, and you would understand this because you work with children, has been the acceleration of learning and processing. You work with young kids; they learn just at huge amounts every day, huge accelerated levels of learning, vast comprehensional levels, and then as you get older, it slows down. But I think with the birth of the internet, or the explosion of the internet, 2010, 2012, that information is moving a lot like in the field of a child now for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that's changing a lot of things too.
Yeah, the standards, like there's been all of these standards for these kids, and they're able to learn in the process, which means that their minds are malleable. So we have to make sure that what they're coming across is pure and good, solid wisdom that supports their sovereignty.
Yes.
And like I remember seeing preschool standard books like this. Kids in preschool should be able to play. Like, I don't understand why there would be so many different standards. Yeah, they want to learn how to play and get along, but it's been a challenge for people in the school system to have kids get along when there was so much structure. Like they were thinking, we put all that structure in, it'll make it easier and they'll do better.
It actually stresses them out.
Yeah.
The universe is never in a rush and always on time. We should emulate that.
Yeah. And so, there was one time I worked in a classroom with, kids that were labeled as moderate, severe disabilities, but because they had less of one thing working for them, they actually had heightened abilities in other areas.
Yeah.
So maybe they were blind and deaf and couldn't speak, but I could have a total telepathic conversation with them as I'm like doing these sound healing instruments, and then they're like, oh, do this and do that, because there could be this stronger dialogue that was on a profound extra sensory level.
Yeah, I remember it would have been 35 years ago, something like that. I remember it was a tough economy, and I went to go substitute teach, and they sent me to a special needs classroom, and I worked with a kid who I guess was autistic, and I remember he was maybe Asperger's, I don't know. He was very moving around a lot, and there was a telepathy. It was hard work, especially because I wasn't used to it. But there was a level of telepathy. And then, of course, we've had these kids or their parents come on the show. I talked about my grandkid, and then a couple of them that come on the show. These kids are speaking from the womb to the mother. They're naming themselves. They're telling their parents, "Hey, I'm not going to get vaccinated. You need to quit your jobs. Get a travel trailer. We're going to travel around." And they're just not even 1 year old. So what's going to happen when these kids are 2.5 and 3 and 4 and 5? I mean, to me, it's not so much that they're making it happen, but they're a sign of the frequency in a physical representation of the energetic field, which is a great sign because, and especially when you think about when the quarantine hit in March, that means that there's going to be a shitload of babies in December. So that'll usher in 2021 pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And as an empath, I felt that I've had like groups of kids where there were like 20 kids in a room, and it was hard to attune to all those energies at once at times.
Yeah.
Without quite understanding how to do it. I took this class in curative education when I was in Sonoma County, and I learned about how we can have this pillar of light. The relationship to the ego is more of an embodied relationship. It's not like we run from the ego. It's more like it's our willpower. That's the idea with it. And so as I learned to really use this pillar, it was like I could have less acting out in my classrooms because I could be in my sovereignty, and then I could support them to be in their sovereignty at the greatest capacity that I could do that within the school system.
Yeah.
And I've been really blessed to the last position that I worked in. I worked in a homeschool setting. And then when we went into the lockdown, then it became really homeschool. Like I could see like the homes and what that living environment is for these kids. And so it was really, it was a very interesting, powerful shift during that time. But I was working one-on-one. So as I was working one-on-one, I could really tune into who people were on a soul level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, and even like in a classroom setting, or even I guess if it was a virtual classroom setting, I think kind of alluded that you kind of set the stage. I mean, you're influencing with intention the energetic field where you're going to interact with these kids, and there's a lot to be said for that. I'm not going to say that's telepathy, but it's certainly potential telepathic communication. And we all know how real our imagination is in terms of constructing in the energetic field, which then converts to the physical, the physical situation, like, to set the field up for, let's just say the highest potential of learning or what's best for the kids, or show me which route to take with them, or, because we got to remember too, I mean, we're not in the linear anymore. I'm not an educator, but these kids are souls, timeless souls, just like we are. They have a team, just like we do. So we're dealing with a much bigger populace, if you will, than just a room full of 30 kids, So that's another thing. It's going to be interesting to see how this transition occurs when the baton is passed from the parents or from the old paradigm to the new one, because I can't see how in the new one the kids wouldn't have a huge hand in it. Like you were saying earlier, they would be the ones to basically design the curriculums.
Yeah. Yeah, they're helping us figure out what's meant to go into the curriculums.
Now, do you do, or let me put it this way, is there anything because I don't want to run out of time on it. Is there anything that you want to do? I'm not really clear on what you do, and I don't have to be, but I mean, in terms of, I don't know if you want to do any light language, a blessing, an activation, or if there's anything you want to demonstrate, or if there's anything you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, my website's devonsophia.com. I share raising consciousness information on there, divine feminine wisdom. I also have some sound healing. I call it now harmonic balancing. And so there's toning on there. There's sound baths on there. I do sound baths in my community and toning circles in my community. At a yoga studio, I do the toning circles. And I'm starting to work in holistic health centers doing sound baths. And
Wow.
I'm
curious, what instrument do you use for the sound bath? The gong?
I have a gong, yes.
Okay.
But I've been using my voice and an ocean drum.
Oh, those are cool.
Crystal, triangle.
Those
I'll
ocean
do a
drums
sound bath sometime on here, but I'll do a little bit of toning for you.
That's fine. But those ocean drums are very cool. I've only seen one.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the little ball bearings inside. It sound like oh my God, those are incredible. I wouldn't mind having one of those. So you use your voice for sound bathing. You use the ocean drum and other instruments.
Other instruments, yeah, as well. But our voice is the best instrument because it has the strongest reverberance of the energy. I have tuning forks too. And with the tuning forks, I'll listen to the tune. Like I can do one now.
Okay.
What do we want? 528?
Whatever you think.
So when did
So that's a 528 tuning fork.
Yeah, this is a 528 tuning fork.
Does the 528 constitute the sound that we hear, or is it something else, the frequency? I never have understood that.
It's the 528 hertz.
Right. So that would be the tone we're hearing, or is that something different? Because I noticed they'll have music videos and they'll have the regular one, and then they'll have one that's in 528. And I can't hear a difference, but maybe that's just because I can't hear, period. Too much rock and roll when I was a kid. But so is it the sound, or is it a frequency, or is it both? Do you know?
It's sound and frequency.
Okay.
It's the hertz.
Okay, I got you.
So here we go. I'll just. Yeah, so that is the 528. So it's the miracle frequency, DNA integration.
That was very impressive. My left ear is still vibrating. So it is. Now I get it. So it does have something to do with the tone of the sound, not the sound alone, but the tone of the sound. But also it has something to do with the vibrational frequency. So that's not when somebody says hertz, it's not one or the other. It's a little bit of both, isn't it? Sounds like it anyway.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. And I just saw that there was a study about COVID and how it has its own frequency. And if we raise our frequency, so we get our hertz up, as Gaia is already doing that. I believe it was another big wave today with the Schumann resonance.
Yeah,
so
something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened.
So I could do a little bit of toning with you guys.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Whatever you think.
With the intention for the highest and best good for everyone present today, watching, and whenever you're watching. Thank you. And sometimes it comes through as just a moment.
That was very good. That was very good. Jennifer, our friend from Australia, says that those were womb sounds.
Thank you, Jennifer.
That was nice. I like that. That said a lot, and that's one of the things I've noticed as I've seen different people do light language, sacred song, and different types of things. And it struck me because every now and then I'll hear somebody say, "Oh, they're not doing it right," or I think to myself, I don't think it's about. I'm sure there's specific star family languages, but to me, it's more about this. Maybe it's the hertz. You know what I mean? It's the resonation and the vibrational frequency and the intention. I think that's a huge part. You can feel the intention come through, and there's something aligning about it, something resonating about it, regardless of what it sounds like to the human, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel, I speak about the galactic, the Hathors were first where I felt the galactic connection. So definitely with tuning into the Hathor energy, and that supported my toning, the work of Tom Kenyon, but just also just connecting with the Hathors.
Yeah.
Man,
I don't know what's going on with the Hathors, but today the Hathors have been brought up by 3 or 4 different people. So something's going on with the Hathors. I can feel it.
Yeah. And then the Lyran aspect has felt like really strong now.
Yeah, the Lyran thing's been I think the Lyran, this year, to me, the Lyran's been very present, but especially since leading up to Lionsgate and since Lionsgate, it's been very, very prominent.
When my Lyran aspect, I believe it was sometime around solstice, came into divine union with me, it was a little jarring at first because there was that connecting with this really high dimensional energy, and then coming into this third dimension, there was, having to work through some of the stuff that's in the dimensions. But there was I was guided to watch certain films to help me connect with it, to the Lyran energy,
Really?
the Lion King with real lions. Yeah. There was another one too. And I had this painting on the wall, and the painting flew off the wall to get my attention. Yeah. So yeah, they're very powerful.
Just for the sake. Oh, what the heck did I get away? It's the sound. I think it is. You hear that? It must be the Hathors. Okay. So in the spirit of helping people who are just waking up, or at least coming out, when you say that you experienced divine union with an aspect, in this case Illyrian, I think it was Illyrian. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like? What did it feel like? Were you laying down? Were you walking? Were you in delta state? Were you in theta state? Were you able to remember it right away? Can you just give us an idea of what that was like?
I feel like to come into divine union with a cat aspect, I had to really feel into that whole the animal human anamorphic connection, and just have acceptance for the differences of I have a cat. I've had cats before, and so there was this acceptance coming into allowing an acceptance. Yeah. But yeah, there's been different aspects. It's so important that we educate children about the Lemurian and the Atlantean aspects. I mean, that's something that is taught in Waldorf, but it's not taught in everything.
What is Waldorf? What is that?
It's basically came out of a cigarette factory that Rudolf Steiner was working for the
Rudolf
there.
Steiner. So it's tied to him.
Yeah, and there's Steiner schools as well.
Yeah, I knew there was. I'd not heard, but I've heard of another one here in this country that's, I think, a regional. And it would have shocked me if I would have found out that they were, talking about Lemurian Atlantis. But yeah, this makes more, with Steiner, it makes much more sense.
Yeah. And it's in the private schools, not in the public schools.
Yeah.
They won't do that in the public schools, but in the private schools.
They won't do anything. Well, that's about to change, though.
Yeah, that's about to change. And now families, because I have a connection with some of the Waldorf families in the area, they're starting to say, oh, instead of us trying to build a school from scratch or like get all these teachers together in this building, we can gather as parents and create and use this curriculum, the homeschool curriculum, so we can teach all the things we want to teach and not teach the things we don't want to teach. And so that's coming available. So it's choice. It's school choice. People have a choice of the education they want to have, as long as they see it, as long as they see their sovereignty.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Todd. Yeah.
Do you have anything you wanted to announce before we head out of here, or any last little song and dance or anything like that you might want to do?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of toning on the way out. It's fine. We can also complete an oming together because that's so powerful. Just visit the website, devonsophia.com. You can like my Facebook page, Pure Love Holistic Arts. And I offer tutoring for kids, really helping them with their basic skills. But I really want to support Starseed families. There's a label in itself, but I want to support awakening families.
Right on.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent.
So
you don't have to dance. I was kidding.
Oh, do we want to dance?
I always say that to everybody just to give them.
We can dance on the way out. I'm down with dancing. Yeah. So now I'm feeling the spiraling, swirling, whirling, grounding connection with the root. As we close, like if we can do a couple of ohms together. So wherever everyone is, if you can complete with 3 ohms.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we'll have to get together later in the year or first part of the year. And
yeah, I'd love to.
Good luck with what you're doing. And there's some people I know that are involved in the arena with working with the children and restructuring this educational system. I have a feeling that you guys will all connect, but I'm thinking of a couple. One of them lives in San Diego, and I'll be seeing her in Sedona second half of this month. But there's a couple others, so anybody sees this, reach out to her, and let's start collaborating, co-creating. That's what this whole year is about. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
You take care.
Okay.